Okay, welcome to webinar 15 of the Internet for Educators series. My name is Teresa Hardy and I will be presenting tonight. We're going to talk about technology resources for grade 9 through 12 classroom, and that will include space technology, alternative energy technologies, robotics, computer science, and we even have a website I'm going to show you that is about the Internet. So let's go ahead and get to the tour. All right, so our first website tonight is from NASA, and NASA has quite a few really valuable websites for educators. And this one talks about, of course, space technology. And in the grade 9 through 12 area, we have materials, sites, and then there's a little bit about some programs. This is the entry page to that section. We have featured teaching materials. Here are some sites, and we will view a couple of these here in just a minute. Of course, all of this is through NASA, and they do a really good job with their materials. The first area I wanted to show you is under teaching materials, featured teaching materials, and we have a scale model of the space shuttle. And again, we have a space shuttle mission coming up very soon. It was postponed, but I believe it's going to be it's been rescheduled for sometime in the not too distant future. And this is a way to talk to your students about the space shuttle program and some of the science that goes into launching and landing space shuttles. It's a PDF file, so you'll need the Adobe Reader plug-in, but that's easy to obtain and free. And this is what it looks like. As an educational brief, talks about the space shuttle, the different components. And then we have a scale model a little further down here that students can put together so they can become more familiar with the components that make up the space shuttle. Now, this is an easy lesson here. A lesson that has a little bit more oomph to it, especially because it includes a lot of math, is the Space Shuttle Ascent module. And in this module, this would be for students that have at least had some algebra, you will use graphing calculators to figure out things like glide slopes and orbital excuse me, pardon me, orbital calculations, etc., etc. There are several lesson plans here, and they are calculator specific. We have files for the TI-84 Plus, the TI Inspire, so you can choose the graphing calculator that you want to use for the class, and then the materials will reflect that choice. And we also have data files that your students will use to plug in for the information to run the equations. And then we have media, we have video. This will take just a minute to connect.
Here, let's go for auto sequence start. And we have a go for auto sequence start. Discovery's onboard computers have primary control of all the vehicle's critical functions. T-minus 17 seconds and counting. 15. 12.
So your students can watch an actual shuttle launch, a recording of one. And then we have something here that requires Google Earth, and I'm not going to show that one right now. Let's look at the data files. Let's see. Save this file. This is how you get the data files. There are several ways to do this. You can either right-click and then save the link as, or you can just click it and your browser will ask you where you want to put it. I'm going to put this on the desktop. This is a zipped file, But Windows has a built-in unzip utility. Basically, it's zip is a compression utility. Go to our desktop here, and here it is. We can right-click and extract all, and then we'll have our data files on the desktop. And there they are. And here's the instructions that go with them. So that's how you get your data files, and here are the lesson plans. And you can just print these out. Talks about all the concepts, gives instructions and objectives. So these are some really nice lesson plans for the grade 9 through 12. Okay. Going back, if space shuttle science is your topic of choice, there's another website, Space Shuttle Endeavour. You can learn all about the Space Shuttle Endeavour, about its missions. I believe there's some video as well. Has a little bit of information about the entire shuttle fleet, the payloads that they've carried into space, and recent news. Then here's on the site we also have web pages that talk about other missions, other NASA projects. Here's a do-it-yourself podcast, by the way, how to make your own space podcast. And then here's some podcasts from NASA. This Week at NASA, NASA Moments, Shuttle and Station, and then some general space-related podcasts. And a podcast, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, is a pre-recorded. It's kind of it's almost like radio. It's only audio. It's not video, but it's a little bit like a pre-recorded radio program. You can download these, or you can generally play them through the internet if you like. All right, so that is a look at the NASA site. There's a lot of other things that are available here, but that's all we have time for now. So let's go to our next site, which is called spaceweather.com. And the reason I included this site here instead of in the General Earth Science webinar is because this showcases a lot of the information being gathered by some extremely advanced technology. For instance, we have SOHO, which is also linked down here, and it's the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory. Okay, so here's the link for that, and that's a bit of a tongue twister. There's also links for other websites to other projects that showcase some of their data on space weather. But spaceweather.com actually covers a fairly wide variety of data and space phenomena, and it changes every day. This is a website that's literally updated anytime something interesting occurs. So let's have a look at some of the information they have on there tonight. Right now, apparently, we are on an aurora watch. I don't think that we're quite as far north as we would need to be to see one here in Idaho, although occasionally you can see auroras from Idaho, and as a matter of fact, auroras can be seen occasionally even from the southern United States. But we've had a coronal mass ejection in the recent hours, and here's a video showing this from SOHO. And this right here is a comet that was on its way into the sun. It actually was destroyed by the impact. Excuse me. And the coronal mass ejection, however, occurred, it's not related, because the sun, the size of the sun is right here. They have something blocking it out so we can see the solar atmosphere. And so the comet didn't actually quite reach the sun before the coronal mass ejection exploded out. But that's a rather interesting video there. And that coronal mass ejection is on the way as we speak. And we will probably see some effects from that. We also have sunspot watch. The sunspot cycle is something of great interest to space scientists for many reasons. And here's the current sunspot map. We just have a couple of small ones at the moment. And then they also will generally talk about interesting astronomical occurrences. For instance, we have a planetary alignments at the moment where Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury are visible in the sky in a very small area at the same time. And then here we have the current auroral oval. And this shows you where auroras are currently visible. And as you can see, it's not anywhere near Idaho, but occasionally this will drop down quite a bit if there's been a lot of solar activity. Here's the forecast for further flares and geomagnetic storms. Here are asteroid encounters. They have a lot of information on here. Like I said, this is all very current. Here's NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center atmospheric optics. This talks about solar phenomenon generally, known as sundogs, sun pillars, and of course rainbows are very common, but those are actually solar optical phenomena. Here's a Solar Dynamics Observatory, 3D views of the sun, daily sunspot summaries. You'll notice that these are, a lot of the information on these are reflected a little bit higher up in the page. So let's go to SOHO. Just have a quick peek here. You can see where they're getting their videos. They're reposting videos from SOHO. But there's more information there. So if space science is something you want to cover in class, this gives you quite a bit of interesting information to add to your curriculum. Okay, so next we have Energize Your Future. This is energy technology, especially as it concerns alternative energy. And here are some little mini units on alternative energy. Some activities for constructing a turbine, solar energy collectors, electrolysis, wind energy. Here's the student activity, comes with a student activity and a key teacher's guide. And this one is a step-by-step guide to creating your own wind turbine. And let's have a look at the teacher's guide here. It gives you some background information and tells you which standards this lesson complies with, and gives you a challenge activity that you can add to your unit. Let's see here. What else do we have? Go back. All right, then we have calculating energy, energy today, energy trivia, energizing careers. Careers are something that grade 9 through 12 students are beginning to have an interest in. Talks about the different skills that are required to succeed in an alternative energy field. Okay, so that is Energizing Your Future, and that's by Shell Corporation. Let me go ahead and shut these extra files down here. And then we will move to NOVA, which is brought to us from pbs.org. And NOVA has quite a few resources. These are mostly mini lessons on particular topics. On this page we have different types of solar energy collectors. There's an interactive about the different parts of a solar cell. We have biofuel, fuel cells. Here's anatomy of a rover, talks about the Mars rovers, one of which is still operational. I believe it's been 7 years now, at least 6 years. And then we have several pages actually of information here that you can use in your classroom. Not all of this is on technology, but all of it is on science, and it's all very interesting. So let's go back to new ways to catch rays and look at the format. It's called an interactive. It's not a video. It's more of a slightly interactive lesson where you'll be clicking through at your own pace and reading material. So let's see what this looks like. We have this here. Talks about, has an introduction, and then we go through several different types of collectors. We have thermal trough, mirror dish, power tower, thin film, concentrated sunlight, solar paint, evacuated tube collectors, and sun-grown biofuel. So that covers pretty much the full spectrum of the projects that have been that are on the board right now, hoping to become viable commercially so that people can actually begin to get some use from this, all of the work that's gone into creating these. So here's thermal trough. You can just scroll through this, just click through this next, and it just goes through each of the different types, explains them, shows you a picture of what it looks like, tells you a little bit about how they work, and talks about some facilities that are already in place and using this particular technology. So that is one of their interactives, but they also have some lesson plans with videos, and I believe, let's see here, I believe this one of the ones with videos. No, let's see here, which one had the video I wanted to show you. Okay, this, I remember which one it was. It's on page 3. This is actually quite fascinating. It is a nanotube space elevator. Something that just sounds so improbable on the surface, but a lot of the great minds of space science believe it could work. This one's a video, so let's click through and look at this. Takes a minute to load. It explains what a space elevator
taking
is.
a vacation in orbit? Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, when the Space Needle here in Seattle was built in 1962, back at the dawn of the space age, lots of people thought they would soon be taking trips just like that. Of course, it hasn't quite worked out that way. It cost about $500 million just to take the space shuttle out for a spin. Kind of an expensive vacation, isn't it? One, please. Thank you. But what if there was another way to get to space? And what if that way were as easy and as cheap as riding an elevator? Well, strange as it sounds, some people think this kind of trip might just be possible one day, thanks to something known as the space elevator. A 22,000-mile-long cable that we could ride straight to outer space.
What we're talking about is building the biggest thing ever.
And what enables this big idea is the discovery of something so small you can't even see it with the naked eye. A new material called a carbon nanotube.
Okay, there we go. Space elevators. 22,000 miles long. I think it's an interesting concept. I'll believe it when I see it. I hope they can pull it off. Okay, next we have a K-12 station, and a lot of this is in is energy type science. Here is actually this section right here is the impact that our technology has on the environment, and examines it. Several different groups are examining this, and the two we're going to look at here are National Geographic, and then this one here which is from, let's see here, Annenberg Lerner. Okay, let's go back here. Human Impact from National Geographic. Talks about the impact that our technology has made on the Earth. And that's just a bit loud. Okay, that's just a little bit loud here. I hope they're not all that loud.
WPTF News, I'm Johnny Hood. A code purple advisory for today from air quality officials. Ozone levels are likely to be very unhealthy outside in the triangle today.
And that one was ozone. Deforestation and desertification is next. And those are all quite loud. And then the last one is overpopulation. Okay, now that's the National Geographic version, and then we have this site that talks about garbage. Technology, unfortunately, creates a lot of garbage. The manufacturing process, the resource extraction processes, the use of it, the packaging of it, the transportation of it, all creates waste. And this site right here talks about what kinds of waste technology creates and how currently we deal with it. We have an introduction, we have solid waste, hazardous waste, sewage, global efforts, the future, and we have a related resources where you have some links to the U.S. Department of Energy Office of Waste Management. Apparently waste is a large enough problem it has its own government office. And there are other sites here that deal with technology's impact on the environment. You can see we have ozone and farming, water quality, human impact on the air and the water and the land, pollutants in the environment. So let's examine all of these issues in detail as they pertain to our technology. Okay. Here we have the Center for Energy, and there are various, again, this is alternative energy science here, and there are various resources available. Number 2, I wanted to show you, let's see here, this is seeds, there we go. This is grades 5 through 12. So it just kind of takes you through a general introduction to wind energy. A virtual tour, production, equipment, issues and impacts. And then over here, you have attached concepts, extra concepts that go with. It talks about wind turbine technology. It talks about which areas are using wind turbine technology. Now this one's kind of Canada-centric, but a lot of what's on the site applies to the United States just as well. Now here in the U.S., we have several wind sites up here in the Pacific Northwest. We have some in Oregon, some in California, Nevada. We have some in Idaho. We have some in Colorado and Wyoming. Okay, so that's the seed site. Then we have another down here from the U.S. Department of Energy. And we have, let's see here, wind energy. This is an actual lesson plan It's in PDF format. Grades 9 through 12. Here's the summary. Here's the standards. And here's the actual plan linked up here at the top. Exploration of wind energy and wind turbines. Walks you through the concepts and the learning goals. We have a pre-assessment. And then a list of the activities. We basically have an activity grid here. The standards. And then we get to the lesson plans. There are how many pages here? Looks like 15 pages of data and charts, lesson plans, and worksheets. And the second one, let's see here, wind. And this is a website. Let's see here. Is this the one I wanted to show? Actually, I believe this is not the one I wanted to show. But here are some info books on wind energy, secondary energy info book. So this one actually has some content type resources that you can use. Takes a minute for these things to download. And here we have it. Very nicely put together. Has all different kinds of alternative energy topics. It's like a very nice book. 80 pages worth. It's a small textbook. All right, so next we have another site from NASA, grades 9 through 12. And this one focuses more on robotics and some other space sciences. In particular, we have Mars Robotics. Actually, I have that website already up. Now that I think about it, here it is. The Mars Exploration Program. We have classroom resources, posters, and this talks about the which projects are suitable for which grade. Apparently all of them are suitable for grades 5 through 8. Imagine Mars apparently is a little bit young for that age group. But Mars Student Imaging Program Project and Mars Robotics Education, Mars Educator Workshops, those are for teachers. Here's the Mars Student Imaging Project. So this is a collaborative effort across the nation, and students will join teams and work with scientists on dealing with some of the huge amounts of data that have come through the Mars rover program. Here are some other activities. And let's see here, Grand Canyon of Mars and how it formed. It says grades 6 through 12. Is there water on Mars? And here is a lesson plan to explore that question. And some external links. Destination Mars, Robotics Alliance Project, Space Science Educational Resource Directory, and then here are even more links at the bottom. What can we learn from Mars's magnetic field? What's Mars made of? And yet more resources. Reaching for the Red Planet, of course that's a little young, it says grades 4 through 6. Exploring Mars, Mars Today. It's a poster produced daily. It gives some interesting facts about how Mars is today, because Mars has weather as we have weather, and there are things that affect that weather, and it changes. All right, so I'm going to shut these down here. Actually, quite a few good sites there. And we are going to move on to the first website. And this is, well, let me just click in here and show you. It's a robotics program. Let's see here, junior grades. Let's see here, 4 through 8 and 9 through 12. First Tech Challenge. Schools can enter this competition and attend the conferences, attend the actual competitions in person. There's the game info, team resources. Talks about what you need in order to compete. And let's see, here's the event. Tournament information. You can go to the small tournaments, you can go to the regional tournaments. Here's a championship tournament. Talks about what the tournaments are like. Talks about how to raise funds to send your team to the tournament. There's a kit of parts. So this is something that Lego is involved in. Many schools already have robotics programs using Legos. This is something else you can use to get the most out of the money spent for that. Okay, next we have some teaching resources on alternative energy once again. I'm not going to click through many of these here. The U.S. Department of Energy talks about alternative fuels for transportation, cell wall chemistry of biofuel, creating biodiesel. Actually, let's click on that one. So these are more lesson plans on creating alternative fuels. Not so much alternative energy, but alternative fuels in this case. It's from the same site as the one we looked at before, as you can tell, because the materials all have a common look to them. Biofuel project. And here's some lab experiments that you can conduct. Actually looks like, yes, as a matter of fact, you are actually creating biodiesel. Okay, what else do we have here? Cell wall chemistry of biofuels. So with these resources, you can learn about biofuels. You can actually create biofuels in the chemistry lab. Okay, let's see here. This is one of the lesson plans. Okay, talks about transportation fuels. This is from the previous site. 6 activities, 2 grade levels. Talks about vehicles, hydrogen and fuel cells, and biomass. And there's the cell wall chemistry of biofuel. All right, so that's it for that part of the site. Our next site is called Pathways to Technology. It talks about different technology fields. We have aerospace technology, agricultural technology. Agriculture is an area that you often don't associate with technology, but in fact, there's quite a bit of research going into technology to enable farmers to grow more crops using fewer resources. You have biotechnology, construction engineering, engineering technology. We'll get into engineering in the next webinar. We have environmental technology, manufacturing technology, marine technology. Just goes on down the list here, talks about all the different technology fields, many of which you may have not heard of. And then here's a little section on jobs, a little bit of career exploration for students that may be interested in learning more about these fields. Breaks it down. For instance, information technology, they have web developer, software engineer, and database specialist sections. When you click into this, it talks about the basic requirements for the job, what sort of tasks that person will be doing in general. There's software engineer. It says it requires strong analytical and programming skills, problem-solving ability, ability to work as part of a team. Here's database specialist. So again, this age group is often beginning to think about future careers. So this could be a valuable resource, give them a little more information on technology careers. And along that line, we have another site called A Day in the Life. And this one is A Day in the Life of a Computer Programmer. Talks about what you need to do to prepare for computer programming as a career and what computer programmers typically do during the day. This is, well, let's see here. My primary field is actually computer programming, and I don't see a whole lot of actual programming in here in this list. Now, the administrators will probably not have a lot of programming on their to-do list during the day, but the general coders are going to have programming in this list here somewhere. They're not going to be attending quite so many meetings, hopefully, and they'll be doing more programming. And here's some information on computer science degrees. And there are other careers on this site. Here's a career homepage, but this one's a technology-related career, so I pulled this one up just to show. All right, speaking of programming and web development, many students find that they have an interest in this, and the grade 9 through 12 time period is a good time for students who have an interest in computers and technology to do a little exploration, see if this is something that really is for them or not. This is a site that has a lot of online tutorials and simulators, and it even has some quizzes. This site is called W3 Schools. W3C is the organization that maintains the site, and W3C is the organization that maintains the standards for all of these languages listed here. So they have a unique position in the IT field, and if students are interested in learning a little bit more about programming and languages, this is a good place to send them. They can work through this on their own. They can try out the code. I don't believe anything in here actually requires any special software to run, and if it does, it's free software, and they give you links to it. So they can spend some time learning HTML and CSS, which are the languages used to create web pages. And then we have a lot of other languages over here on the side that are used to enhance the web pages that have been created and make them more functional and interactive. So you can go through the tutorials, then you can take the quiz, and students who are interested in gaining some certifications could actually take the certification exams. All right, next on the list we have NASA's Imagine the Universe for students age 14 and up. And it has some news, has some discussion. Here's a featured scientist. And here is an exhibit, an online exhibit of satellites. Actually, this one's a Space Telescope satellite. Okay, here's a current event. It says, well, actually it's from last year, but it's an article that's recently been published. Talks about a collision, and here's a video that's downloading. We'll come back to that in a minute. Here's the backstory. An asteroid called, looks like Sheila, suddenly brightened late last year for no apparent reason, and they've now determined that this is because there was a collision with another asteroid, a smaller one. And here's the video that goes with the story.
You don't have to do this so practically.
Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Asteroids collide all the time. At least we think they do. Close-up views from spacecraft show asteroids to be pockmarked with impact craters. But until recently, astronomers never expected they'd see the recent aftermath of a collision. Now, thanks to Hubble and Swift, they have. In early 2010, Hubble took a close look at the tail of what astronomers thought was an unusual comet. The curious tail turned out to be wreckage from a collision between two small asteroids. On December 11, 2010, astronomers saw that another asteroid, 596 Sheila, had also grown a tail.
Okay, that's all we have time for on this one. Here's some more recent articles, news articles, and then here's the archive. We have more resources on the side. We have recent additions. There's a resources wiki, which basically is an index of all the resources that they have on the site. As you can see, they have quite a bit of interesting content here. Much of it space technology related. All right, so the next site I have for you is from the National Science Foundation. And we have special reports on many topics. We will look at a few of these here. Scroll through, there's apparently 48, and many of these are not technology related. We will look at a couple that are. And there are 2 pages worth, 48 in all. There's one on robotics, cyber infrastructure. So let's look at the sites that I've pulled from this to have a closer look at. We have one that's Chemistry Now. And this is a series that's being shown on television by the National Science Foundation on NBC. And then they archive at least some of these episodes here on the web. This one talks about the chemistry of water.
It might just be the most universally known fact in chemistry, the chemical formula for water, H2O. A model of H2O doesn't look like much. 2 small atoms of hydrogen, H2 part of H2O, attached to one bigger atom of oxygen, the O part of H2O. Kind of like a cartoon drawing of a teddy bear. And actually, water is kind of funny. Fun facts. Water, H2O, is the only natural substance on Earth found in all 3 common states of matter. Liquid.
Okay. And we have something called cheeseburger chemistry, molecule structure and properties, chemical bonds, the chemistry of chocolate, and more cheeseburger chemistry. Anyway, we have a fair number of different mini videos here online, and you can go through and just pull whatever strikes your fancy. The next site that I've pulled out from the list is on climate change. And this one talks about how our technology has affected our environment, or how science believes it has affected or will affect our environment. And then it has all of this broken down into different areas here, or different topic areas. We have an intro. And it explains what climate is. We have different subject areas. We have the sky. Talks about how climate change has affected the atmosphere. And we have sea. Have some interesting charts. We have a community climate system model linked here. National Science Foundation. Talks about other forms of life that are impacted by climate change. And then we have impacts on people. It talks about the role that science and technology has in figuring out how to mitigate these effects, and also to hopefully keep them from becoming worse. That's part of what alternative fuels are all about. All right, the next website I have here is from the National Science Foundation again, and this goes into the history of the Internet. Now, the Internet, many people don't realize, but it began way back in the 1960s. So let's click on that. You can see we have a timeline down here at the bottom. Talks about different events in the early years of the Internet. It says computers begin to transform the world, and those look like, are those computer punch cards? Okay. And then you click into this, and you can watch a video. I think that one's a bit loud, so I think we're going to skip that one. And here's the intro. Okay, we're going back to where we began here. 1960s, let's see here. All right, so we have Cold War. The origins of the Internet lie in some of the preparations made during the Cold War to make sure that communication could not be knocked out globally for a long period of time, that it had some redundancy built in. And here's computer networking, early network experiments, ARPANET, and this gentleman here who was involved in some of the early ARPANET versions of the Internet, early Internet versions, 1970s. There's some events in the 70s that contributed to the building and growth of the Internet. And we had the 90s. That's when most people became aware of the Internet, was in the 90s. And during the mid to late 90s was when just ordinary people were allowed to hook into the Internet. Up until then, it was mostly the government, military in particular, and universities, large universities. And nowadays, we really can't imagine life without the Internet. But it's actually a fairly recent invention. And here we have a section on the 2000, after 2000. Talks about handheld devices and Web 2.0. And what the future is going to be like. Let's look at this. It says, so in 20 short years, the Internet has gone from a few networked labs and universities to a multi-layered network connecting hundreds of millions of people. What will the next 20 years hold? That's actually a big question. They're talking about building a stronger, faster Internet. And they don't really have a lot of speculation. That's too bad. I was kind of hoping for some speculation. Okay, number of computers on the Internet. That's interesting. Sequential maps of internet growth. That's 1969, ARPANET. And 1977, ARPANET. 88, 95. This is when just ordinary people were allowed to start getting on the internet. Here's 2007. It's grown just a little bit. There we go. Just a little bit. Number of computers on the internet. Let's see, it's 3, 6, 9. So that is thousands, millions, billions. That's 1,200,000,000,000 computers on the internet. Statistics. Okay, let's go back here. Discoveries, news, recent news. And this is not necessarily about the internet. It looks like it's just science news in general. Okay, so that's it for this site. And then our last site here for the evening is an alternative fuel vehicle technician. This is actually a career information site. Let's go to career info. Talks about different kinds of careers. Let's see here. Career info. Okay, the only one here that actually goes with technology is the one we were looking at, and that's the AFV technician. And this is actually going to be a growing field in the future, because with all of the research on alternative energies, one of the largest consumers of energy is the transportation industry. That includes trucks and airplanes and all of the millions and millions of cars on the road. Talks about what a student would need to do to get started. They'll need computer skills. And here's some idea for what type of company they may find themselves working for. And here's some general tips for getting into this career field. Okay, well, that about wraps it up for this evening. And I hope that you found some interesting sites to use in your classroom.